Hi, everybody. I am Jen Johnson, and you are watching Thought by Thought Healing, where I talk about everything related to chronic pain and chronic symptoms and how, by understanding pain neuroscience, we can reverse and renew those neural pathways. I come at this from a Christian perspective, and so if that's important to you, then you are in the right place, and you should definitely subscribe. And if you're listening on podcast platforms, I would love if you would leave a review. This really is how we get that hope of healing out there. So on this channel, I interview experts in the field, and I also just talk about my own healing journey from coming from a life that just revolved around symptoms and pain, and how by understanding pain neuroscience and the way that our beliefs and emotions play out in our bodies, that I was able to reverse those many different types of symptoms. So first of all, I want you to know that I see you. I've been where you are, and it is difficult, but there is hope. And so on this channel, I talk about my own healing journey and some of the tools I use or used. And I am also a chronic pain coach. So if you are interested in working with somebody, then check out my website, which is thoughtbythoughtealing.com. And you can follow me on Facebook and on Instagram also. On this channel, I talk about my own story, and I also interview experts in the mind-body field. And so today I had the honor of having Georgie Oldfield with me. So I'm going to read her bio to you. Georgie Oldfield MCSP is a leading physiotherapist and chronic pain specialist, promoting a pioneering approach to resolving chronic pain through her online SIRPA, that's SIRPA, recovery program. Georgie is the founder of Serpa, an organization dedicated to promoting the concept that chronic pain is part of an unconscious protective response caused by learned nerve pathways rather than any physical abnormality found. Hence, full recovery is possible, and I agree. As well as her clinical work, Georgie gives talks and writes widely about the concept, publishing a book, Chronic Pain, Your Key to Recovery in 2014, and giving a TED Talk in Manchester, UK in 2019. That's a really good video if you want to watch it. In 2010, through SIRPA, she developed the first training program worldwide, enabling health professionals and coaches to learn how to integrate this approach and the concept on which it is based within their own work. Georgie has also organized and hosted 3 conferences in this field, which were held at the home of the Royal Society of Medicine in London in 2015, 17, and 2022. So, without any further ado, I bring you Georgie Oldfield. Enjoy. Bye. Hi, everybody. I am Jen Johnson, and you are listening to Thought by Thought Healing, where I talk about everything related to chronic pain and recovery from chronic symptoms. And I also interview experts in the field. And like I mentioned in my intro, today I am just honored to have with me Georgie Oldfield. So thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. First, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the work that you are doing. This hope is it's so important. There are just millions of people in chronic pain with seemingly no hope. And here you are getting that news out there. So thank you.
It needs a lot of us to do this.
Yeah, it's true. I want to just start by reading a quote from your website, and then we will just use that kind of as a launching pad and just go wherever we go. So on your website, you have, "My aim is to help people who suffer from persistent pain and for whom conventional medicine has failed to find an answer." And we could go in so many directions just from that one symbol, quote. But maybe just talk about how this all came about for you, how you started in physiotherapy and now are geared towards chronic pain, and just a little bit of that journey for us.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've been a physiotherapist, I hate to say, this year, 40 years. It's a long time.
Nice.
Still working as a physiotherapist. And I remember just being concerned when I was working in the National Health Service about 20 years ago by the lack of therapies we have to offer people with pain. Okay. And I was working in the community at that time as well, and therefore there was very little we could take into somebody's home to help them with pain. So I began to sort of look and see what else I could do, and my own journey went through a few complementary therapies that I was training in, and then the results were actually really good. So I decided that I wanted to work privately, set up my own clinic, but still questioning. Probably questioning more because I had longer with my clients. So in the NHS, we had a shorter time that we could actually see clients, and you could set your own amount of time that you had with clients when you run your own clinic. So I had more time to think about what's happening. I realized results were improving, and we all know about the therapeutic alliance, how it's just as important, the relationship between the therapist and the client, as whatever you're doing with them. But I began to see some things that were incongruent really with my training. And I was also experiencing some of these. So for example, I left the NHS, and I can't remember exactly when, but within a few weeks I woke up in agony with sciatica. I had no clue why, and I knew I hadn't done anything, hurt myself or anything, and I struggled with it for a few weeks. We did go and have some treatment, and it was actually with a lady who did craniosacral therapy with an emotional release as well.
Oh,
So she was the first person who ever said to me, and I've never said it to a client, so what's going on in your life? Because if we don't know, we can't ask. And I think this is the problem with the medical world, is we're blinkered and we focus on the physical, what's going on physically, without looking at anything around what's going on in our life and what have we experienced. And so that was the start of my journey, trying to find an answer, realizing, okay, so I left the NHS, I'd set up my own clinic. I needed to make it work. I'd stopped having a regular salary. My husband's self-employed. I'd stopped my pension from the NHS and had to set up a new one. All these things. And I was anxious, but you just stuff it down and you hide it and you carry on. I think we all recognize that now, don't we?
yes, 100%. Yeah.
So it was really, sorry, go on.
I love that you said, if we don't know, we can't ask.
Yes.
If we don't know about this connection between the body, brain and the body, we don't even know how to start actually taking care of people, right?
No, absolutely. And we as individuals can't even consider it ourselves if we're not aware. And I certainly wasn't. You know, I would never have thought, well, I just, like we do, I thought when I rolled over in bed, I must have hurt my neck in bed. Slept with the same pillows and the same mattress for years, but still woke up in pain. So, and I think that's why when I researched, read around, talked to colleagues, including the craniosacral therapist, and then came across Dr. Sarno's book in 2007. I think it was Healing Back Pain I read first. And for me, it was an epiphany. It was a complete aha moment, helped, I think, by the fact that halfway through the book, I woke up one morning with neck pain, with really bad neck pain, struggling to move my neck. I was going to go on a 5-hour car journey with my children, and I had all that pain. And because I'd read half of the book, I knew why I had pain, but I've not reached the bit that told me what to do about it.
Sure. Yeah.
So what I noticed was that within an hour of the situation that was the cause of it easing, my neck pain just settled. I could move my neck easily. So that was such an important thing for me. And I really feel like we as practitioners benefit so much more, and probably our patients benefit as well, from us understanding on experiential level. And I don't really feel we can do this work without understanding this on an experiential level, because this is the mind body, this is human experience, it's who we are, and we need to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just being known and seen by the person that you're working with just does wonders for our brain, right?
Absolutely. I think it was really important. And I think at that point it was just really challenging, because I couldn't find anybody in Europe or the UK who did this work, which is why in the end I contacted Dr. Sarno, and thankfully he did invite me to observe his work and give me his. And then I came back, and that was a wonderful experience. I've never been abroad on my own before anyway, so that it was a huge experience for me, but fantastic. And came home completely enthused, and really was one of those practitioners who, right, do you want to do this? I want to do that. And probably put a lot of people off by initially being overly zealous about it all. So I soon learned that that's not going to work.
Yeah. Yes. I assume that everybody who learns about the mind-body connection goes through this, I don't know, evangelism phase of we just have to tell everybody, which is not bad, but it does often put a pressure on us to spread this news, which can actually cause some symptoms. Did you discover that at all? Was there like a pressure afterwards?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Still do occasionally.
Yeah.
Just because we're practitioners doesn't mean we don't get symptoms.
Right.
But yeah, I think I think when we start, we just think, oh, I get it. I understand. That means you must be able to understand as well. And so we assume that everybody will get it, will understand. And then we begin to realize, no, that's not the case.
Yeah.
And I remember Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, the pediatrician in California, when she came across the adverse childhood experiences studies, in her TED talk, she also says, that I had this epiphany, I understood it. I thought, great, I'm going to tell everybody about, ACEs and how it impacts people in later life and the impact it has on children. We've got to look after our children. And then she realized, no, this is not going to work. This is a journey, really. And just because we understand it, and we always say this to our practitioners, we meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And depending what you say, what you advise, absolutely depends on where they're at and whether they're ready. It's about sowing seeds, and sometimes those seeds don't flourish for weeks, months, or even years, or maybe never. And we can't convince them.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Okay. You mentioned the ACEs study. Can you just give a summary of what the ACEs study was about and what it showed?
I can't give you any facts and figures because I'm rubbish at those. And haven't looked at them for a while. But basically, this was done in the late 1990s and has been ongoing. So they have, thousands and thousands of people they've done studies on. And they looked initially at people who were struggling with weight, so were morbidly obese, and wondering why these people hadn't, many of them would lose weight, but then pile it back on. And they started looking at these people. And then they began to realize that these were people who had adverse childhood experiences. So, maybe their parent was in prison, maybe there was some emotional, sexual, physical abuse. That looking at the major traumas, rather than sort of any minor ones, because we know that there's so many other more minor traumas. And looked at these people who had gone through these experiences, and then began to study them even more and realize it's not just about weight, it's the number of adverse, they looked at initially 8 and then 10 of these adverse childhood experiences, and started to recognize what a high proportion of people in what was where the study was done, and middle sort of Western class people, Midwestern, I think mostly white middle class people, and that there were significant amounts of adverse childhood experiences. And they found that when they studied this, they realized the link between cancer, autoimmune conditions, pain, all the main killers in the Western world, that there was a major link. And the more adverse childhood experiences they had, the more chance they had of one of those being triggered. Doesn't mean that everybody with cancer will have had, major adverse childhood experiences. We certainly need to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love about mind-body medicine is that we're not left with just that information that we have a more propensity to have chronic pain or all the other things you mentioned, but there's also a way out. And that's the hope that we want people to know about, is that yes, it is true. There is a tendency for there to be chronic symptoms in people who have experienced trauma, but we can work to reverse those, and that's why it's just such good news. If you were going to explain to somebody what is pain and what isn't pain, what comes to mind for you when I first asked that question?
Because it's very difficult. I find it really difficult to explain to people. I think basically pain is a perception. It's not actually a sensation, which is what we used to say it was with the old pain science, the neuro pain science. That used to tell you have a pain, and that therefore pain is insensitive. But what we know now is that pain is a perception from our brain. So it's influenced by past experiences, by our mood, by fear. There are all sorts of things that influence it. The message might go up there, but then it's the brain that determines whether we're going to have pain.
Yeah.
So it really is a perception in the brain. So the pain will be the same whether you have a physical injury or whether it's a neural pathway injury. Therefore, it's so important that we look at red flags, we look at there's been an injury, and we check that there's nothing serious underlying pain.
Okay. Yeah. So we just took a pause in the recording and we're trying to fix the audio. And so if you're wondering why Georgie all of a sudden has big ears, it's because we are trying to make this more audible. But okay, so we ended with pain is a perception, which is 100% true and so important in understanding why we have control over. Control is too strong of a word. We have influence over our pain and our experience of pain. Okay, so pain is a perception. What do you say for people who, coming from a physiotherapist perspective, people who have had an injury, the tissues, seem to be healed, and yet we still have pain. How do you approach that with people?
I think it's easier now than it was back in when I first came across this work, because pain science has evolved so much in the last 15 years. Excuse me. So with the work of Lorimer Moseley, the pain scientist, Lorimer Moseley, Peter O'Sullivan, and lots of other work looking at functional MRI scans, I think it's more widely accepted now that pain is pain that persists after an injury is healed. Is neural pathway pain, is neural pathways, neural circuits that have become learned and become sensitized.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little easier than it was, but there's still that. I think the thing that's still missing, they work, physios, osteopaths, doctors, not all of them will accept this yet, but it's getting easier because the pain science is there. But it's also about I think what's missing often is the lack of understanding about the influence of trauma and of emotions, not just fear, and in the fact that emotions can trigger pain. So if we don't acknowledge and express how we feel, that they can manifest as pain. I think where emotions, most people seem to accept that fear, catastrophizing, because the studies have shown this, will cause pain to increase, or amplify pain, but there's a slight difference with also accepting that we trigger pain as well.
Yeah. Speaking of trauma, and I've heard you mention this before, so I think we're on the same page here, but yes, the ACEs study pointed towards trauma, sets us up for more potential to have pain. But there's a lot of people, including myself, that didn't have childhood trauma and still ended up in horrific chronic pain and other symptoms. We're only talking about pain today, but it's true of all these other symptoms. And for a lot of people, it shows up after this. For me, I had trauma in my adult life. And so it showed up, like a year afterwards, or what is that about? What is the brain's role that's causing me to not have pain while I'm going through the trauma? And then later, all of a sudden, boom, my life has become tiny as I, gear my life around this pain.
It's quite a big question. Lots of different aspects to it.
Yeah.
Trauma does influence the nervous system, so it will put us more on edge, make us more reactive. Our primal brain might become more protective and therefore react more quickly to things. Trauma is also not just the big traumas. It is cultural expectations, religious expectations, family expectations. Being told that you're the good one as you're growing up. No trauma, just you're the good one. Or maybe you've got loud confrontational siblings and you are a bit shy, and then you become quiet because you can't get a word in edgeways. So that can cause pressure because, for example, you might start reacting to, if you don't like confrontation and you die, then if somebody is confrontational, that can trigger something within you. So that can actually cause a lot of stress. If you are not listened to, maybe that's more important for you when you're older. And it could be even just things like social media, somebody doesn't get back to you. That again can cause a different response to somebody who was listened to compared with somebody who wasn't. Yeah? So there are lots of different things, maybe, normal sending children to the naughty step rather than teaching them that anger's bad. You need to go to your room or sit on the naughty step. You mustn't be angry with your sister. Teaching them not to acknowledge emotions. So I love Gabor Mate's book, recent book, The Myth of Normal, just because it might have been normal for so long to send a child to their bedroom when they're having a paddy, or to do whatever. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's going to create healthy children.
Yeah.
So if we're growing up in a family where we are taught that anger is bad, literally maybe just by being told off for being angry, or being told off, don't be a crybaby or whatever, and it might not be trauma, but then as Gabor Mate says, trauma is not what happens to you, but how we respond to, how our body responds to what's happening. So it will impact us all in different ways. And sometimes I would suggest more often than not, there will be mind-body symptoms, maybe minor ones, as we're all growing up. I mean, I certainly didn't have significant pain later. I did later in life, but initially I would get, let's say, a few bowel problems, a bit of touch of IBS, or stomach issues, or I'd have a bit of sciatica, but nothing extreme, or I might have a headache. Or I might have a cold. And these are probably all things that resulting from my personality, because of the way, my experiences in life. So partly my personality and how I face things in life, depending on what my experiences are. And it might not be anything big, but sometimes it's about a layer upon layer upon layer. Or maybe something, like you said, a year later, maybe there's so much that we haven't dealt with, and we cope because we're known to be copers, and shit happens and we just got to get on with it. So we might deal with that, but it often is soon after, or like you say, maybe a year later. But maybe if we haven't dealt with all the stuff that's gone on during that time, and we've just carried on, then there may well be a trigger. And depending on what's actually happened, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe somebody with a beard did something, in that traumatic time. You associated it with that person with a beard, and then maybe somebody with a beard is angry with you a year later. That could trigger you, but unconsciously, it would all be unconscious because your primal brain goes into shutdown because you don't fall apart. You deal with things. Right. And therefore, it could then manifest as symptoms. And then I think it often persists. Well, we know studies are showing that pain persists because if we're anxious, and we can be made anxious by seeing MRI scans and things like that. And we know that if we have scans, we're more likely to have more invasive and stuff afterwards. So that reinforces any anxiety. If we're depressed at the time of the pain onset, all these things, past trauma, that is plays a part in whether pain persists, and our personality. With one of the studies that looked at personality traits with with people going through a placebo car accident. Have you seen that study?
I've read about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did a personality profile at the beginning of these people, and then they scored them, and then they put them through this placebo car crash. It's a proper little car, but they knew that the speed it went before it stopped would not cause any tissue damage at all. And yet 20% had pain straight after, and 10% still had pain a month later. But they had predicted with 92% accuracy from their personality profile who would have pain a month later, which is incredible. So our personality plays a part, and our personality is formed due to our past experiences as well. So, as I said, quite a big answer to a little question.
Yeah. I love talking about personality traits. Everybody has what they attach to in this recovery work, but I just remember learning like, oh, personality traits are developed. What? Okay. Well, if I can develop one, then I can also develop a new one, and I can also shift and change this. It's not easy, but fear-based personality traits are, they go with me everywhere, and so does my pain. And
yes.
I wonder if there's a reason for that. You said you're the good one when you were talking about personality traits being developed, and oh my gosh, that expectation that so much of this work is not, well, none of it is about blaming others. It's about realizing, oh, somebody gave me a compliment once, and now I feel a pressure to live up to that standard always, and to be the good one or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And often the labels that we're given in childhood, and I was the good one. I was such a goody-goody, to the point that when I got married and had children, my husband would deliberately do something naughty because he'd know I'd be going, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'm so much better now. But, the children will get, I'm the naughty one or I'm the clumsy one. And it becomes a belief. And then we know that beliefs can then play a part and manifest in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure do. They sure do. Okay. So what do you think the pain as a signal, what do you think it is calling us to? Is it just letting us know, or is it calling us to a change of action, or, what's the purpose of pain when it's not structural? What's the purpose of it?
I think in general, it is a protective response, protecting us from something that our unconscious mind might perceive to be dangerous. And it could be anything. It could be, a thought or an emotion like anger. Then pain will protect us from feeling that anger. It could be protecting us from changing our careers, because there's so much at stake. And in fact, I remember one patient who had back pain, did his assessment, and this is many, many years ago. And we started looking at the underlying reason for his back pain. And he realized that it had come on because he started to feel unsatisfied in his job. He was a professional, and he was really unsatisfied and wanted to change his career. But the pain was stopping him from changing it, because, how was he going to feed his family? He had 2 children. How was he going to manage them? And it was such a big issue. The pain stopped him even having to consider doing that. So I think there are lots of reasons. There are even some metaphysical explanations where they say that certain emotions cause certain pain in certain areas. And that's always an interesting one as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that interesting also. And I assume that then what we're saying is when that pain comes and shows up for the first time, and it's, work has gone bad, or I don't know, you've created a trend where you're not standing up for yourself, or something. The pain shows up and we go to the doctor instead of look at the relationship. What then? What happens to the pain then if we continue going to all these other avenues of trying to solve the pain? Where does that lead us?
Often it does lead us down the alleyways, and it just persists because we start being given labels. And again, studies have shown that these labels that are given to clients can make the situation much worse, cause the pain to persist, cause it to get worse. And it's constantly searching outwardly for an answer rather than recognizing that the answer is within, which is such a huge thing. It's a huge turnaround for people if they're constantly looking at the pain and focusing on that pain and what they can and can't do because of their pain. And it's so fear-based that's the first thing we need to work on is the fears. But even then, it's such a hard thing to start thinking, well, the pain is in my back. So, how can I not think about that or start to accept that maybe there's something inside, that something's telling me something, it's a message from within. And I think it's a really hard concept for many people to get. Yeah. And about surrendering. When we say surrender, it literally is about stop fighting, thinking, trying, whatever, and let go and surrender to what is. People often think that means, if I surrender, the pain's going to completely overwhelm me. Right. Whereas actually, stop pushing against it, often things will then sit down.
Yeah.
So hard as well.
And just as you're sharing that, it's just reminding me of when my pain came about. There was a ton of legitimate stress in my life, and there were actions I needed to take and beliefs I needed to look at and people I needed to stand up to, and changes that needed to happen. And instead of doing any of those things, I started scheduling doctor's appointments and trying to figure out how I was going to fit this appointment into this schedule that was already a mess. And all I essentially did was just add one more huge stressor. And if you're watching and you're in pain, that you don't even know until you're done with it, how stressful it is to be going to those doctor's appointments, trying to fit them in, hoping for an answer, getting stuck in the waiting for room for another hour, having somebody with terrible
things, totally scary things. Yeah.
And it just adds to the distressing emotions that you're feeling, and then adds to and intensifies the pain that you're experiencing.
Absolutely. And we're trying to change beliefs, and we can't just suddenly change a belief.
So you brought up beliefs. How do we change our beliefs? How do we change our neural pathways? How do we heal? The very big core question. What does that look like?
Well, I think first of all, you can't convince somebody to change their beliefs. This is, we can start to influence, but a belief is our truth. It's what we've learned is the truth. But we can start learning, and I think this is where the evidence-based, this is where the educational side comes in, because the more you can learn and read things and start, what's the word, embodying it yourself, beginning to connect with your situation in relation to what you're reading, then you're getting insights, you're getting epiphanies and aha moments, which allow a shift in that belief. And I think it's a lot easier for people when they start experiencing those to then start changing their beliefs. If they are struggling with that, then there's no reason why they can't continue to do, if they're open to doing some of this work, sort of some of the self-soothing, the emotional awareness, the journaling. By doing those strategies, then they can begin to see what's happening. And one of the first things I do with a client is get that when they're sitting in front of me is to encourage them to just relax, first of all, focus on their heart, calm their breathing down, and just really start self-soothing and slowing the breathing down. And then maybe do a bit of emotional awareness. So take the attention away from the pain. It might be a bit of somatic tracking or emotional awareness where you're just noticing the sensations in your body in relation to an emotion. And quite often while they're doing that, pain will just calm down. Another thing is, in the opposite way, you could ask them to imagine bending over or doing something that causes pain, and quite often that will trigger a response in the body and they'll have pain. So again, that's reinforcing to them that their belief that they've had for so long might not be completely accurate.
Yeah, and that really sets up a foundation for being able to change those deep-seated beliefs around what pain is. There's a piece of evidence that you've mentioned that I don't expect you to remember any statistics around, but and I think you said maybe it was the 90s, but when did we start doing scans of people that were not in pain, that kind of has helped us understand this evidence of what pain is and is not?
I think it was at least the 1990s, if not earlier. Because initially all they were doing was scanning people in pain. And I remember when I came across this work and talking to a radiographer who was a client about this, and she just was so angry with me and just saying, well, every client I see who comes in agony, you can see they've got severe degeneration. And I was saying, but the trouble is you don't see those people who aren't in pain. But she wasn't having so it was a few years after the scans all started, they started doing MRI scans and CAT scans and things. But yeah, absolutely, not just on backs, but there are studies looking at knee pain and hip pain, shoulder pain. So, for example, the shoulder pain, it's looking at baseball players and showing that they've got degeneration in the shoulders. And I can't remember, this is where I don't know statistics, but something like 50-odd% of them, their dominant shoulder, they had torn ligaments or generally degeneration in the shoulder, but no pain, and they were playing at elite level in baseball. And the same with hip pain with hockey players, knee pain with basketball players, that they all showed signs of quite significant, or a lot of them showed signs of significant degeneration, and yet none of them had pain, and they were working at an elite level. So, when you see things like that, I think, it can be helpful to help influence people when they begin to really see that this is just a normal part of aging. Just like grey hairs of the spine, as Dr. Sarno used to say.
I love that.
Yeah.
My mom, maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, had some knee pain and went in and had some scans done. And as you know, it's so hard when it's family and things and whether to say something or not. But they found, a torn meniscus, and she read her MRI reports before talking to the doctor and emailed us all, and was like, I have a torn meniscus and etc. And I didn't respond. And then she went in and talked to the doctor, and she sent a follow-up email to us all and said, turns out the doctor says a lot of people have a torn meniscus and they don't have pain. And so that was really exciting to see, okay, it's showing up in Western medicine. And so that these scans that we're talking about is starting to become more mainstream, which is encouraging.
And if the people in the white coats are saying that, it must be true.
Yeah, that's a packed statement, isn't it? But we do trust them. You bring up a really good point. We trust them, and we base our emotions on people that we trust.
Absolutely. And our beliefs on what we've been brought up with. And, this is why I think the older we get, the harder this is to change our beliefs.
Yeah.
I think it is challenging. And hopefully with the younger generation gradually, these beliefs are coming more into common awareness. So yeah, it's really easier for them.
That's it's reminding me of another story when I was in chronic pain, and I had one physical therapist that every time I would go to, my pain would get horrific. And he was a very stressful person, and I felt judged by him. And then he couldn't help me. Finally, I went back to my old physical therapist, and I walked in. He sat down. He did something manual on my back, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you have this thing. It's like a normal abnormality, though. As long as you don't lift 300 pounds, you're going to be just fine." And I literally walked out of that office with, I mean, it must have been like 50 to 75% less pain. Um, because he had said, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the same thing, when I was 40 and I developed arthritis, well, pain in these fingers and thumbs. As a physio, that's not great when you need your
Sure.
hands. And I was driving like that.
Mm.
And I was worried it wasn't just osteoarthritis, but rheumatoid arthritis. Went to see my GP, who also was concerned it was rheumatoid arthritis. Guess what happened to the pain? Shut up. Luckily, got a quick appointment with an early diagnostic rheumatologist. And he was just so calm and just said, "Oh yeah, no, it looks like just osteoarthritis. You don't need to be worried about it. And take some X-rays. I don't think it's a big deal." And the pain eased by 50%. And then I went back the following week for the results, and he said, "No, you've got a loose body in that thumb, and yes, you've got some arthritis in those joints, but it's no big deal." And I said, "Well, can I carry on playing tennis? Do what you like, it's fine." And after that, within about a week, it had gone. When I look back, I know because a colleague was giving acupuncture to me, and I thought it was the acupuncture. Started training to do acupuncture. When I look back, I can see what was going on and all the stress I was under at that time, and how my trust in this guy and the relief of it not being an autoimmune condition, and everything just calmed down.
Yeah, it is amazing how much calming down and knowing you're okay can
Yes.
relieve.
And the opposite, how if you're told your spine's crumbling, or a rugby player, a ex-professional rugby player I saw, he had been told as he put his Yorkshire accent, my back's broke. He'd been told that from the scans. He'd piled on the weight. He wasn't doing any exercise. Couldn't walk more than a few hundred yards, if that, and had been like that for 12 years since he retired. And luckily, just before he came to me, and he was very skeptical when he came to me, but just before he came, he'd had an X-ray again, and they just said, "Oh, you've got a rugby player's back." All rugby players have backs like that. The relief must be huge. And I remember him then. I assessed him, and something must have sort of clicked with him. And he said, "I went back, and in the afternoon, I was watching a game of rugby, got up to make a cup of coffee, and I realised my sciatica had gone." And then he came to one of the group sessions I ran with some people, and after that, his back pain, somebody said, and I bet he hadn't read my book or done any journaling. For him, it was just aha moments. He was also another learning for me, because I realised that he had his goals. I knew what I wanted from him, because I felt he could really get back to fitness and to lose weight and everything. That's not what he wanted to do. He just wanted to be able to play football with his son. And it was a real learning opportunity for me, setting goals and making sure you set them with the client, and that go with what they are wanting to do, rather than what I felt he could do.
Well, that's interesting, because that kind of brings up the idea of pressures. And if you're in something elite like that, or high level anything,
Mhm.
we have a lot of external pressure, but we also have a lot of internal pressure. And if your goal in healing is to get back to this high pressure point, I think we just have to look at that and ask, what's the motivation behind this? Is it?
Absolutely. And I think it's so important when we're working with people to consider, what is it they're wanting out of recovery. And I would suggest we don't want what we had before, because that was a very pressure-filled life.
Yeah.
And I think what was interesting with this guy was that he was heading towards retirement when his pain came on. Now, if you've been a professional rugby player, what are you going to do? There was real conflict about what he would do with the rest of his life when he was only, I don't know, 30 odd. And he blamed the pain on a tackle he'd been in 5 years before the pain came on.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how we piece things together and often not in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you were to say, like, if we're looking at the recovery journey, you're walking with somebody in the recovery journey, what are the three most important, I don't know, tenets of it? And just what comes to mind to you? I'm assuming one is pain neuroscience, just understanding pain. What other tools do you find that are most helpful for people to understand or to learn about, use?
To address any fears that they've got, to stop striving and trying and pushing and searching, seeking, and to pause and to just start noticing what's going on. I think for me, this work that I do evolved when we began to look at how we more about the emotions, about what's going on in the body, embodying what's happening. And certainly I found when people are focusing on the pain or even journey's great. And don't get me wrong, that's one of the first things that I would advise patients to do as well. But when they also learn to just pause and be still and not just do mindfulness meditation, for example, I talk about pause, breathe, feel, reassure. To pause when you notice the pain's increased or the pain has changed, or you feel, and this is where it changes as you become more emotionally aware. For me, generally, rather than pausing when I have a pain, it's pausing when I've been triggered, when I feel an emotional response. Yeah. So I would pause at that point, and I would calm my breathing down, and I would feel, I'd observe what's happening in my body. So I'm not focusing on the pain, I'm focusing on maybe even the heart chest area. What's happening? And this is what I would teach a client at the beginning is, what's the difference when you feel love? Are you aware of what's going on in your body? So this interoception. If you bring to mind somebody you love, and what are you aware of that changes in your body? And often there's a warmth or a expansiveness in the chest. Or I'll ask, if you think about somebody that you're having an issue with, or doing something that might be painful, sometimes the pain will come on, but also what are you aware of in the body when you do that? And often they can feel a tension or tightening or whatever, sometimes not. And that gives me an indication of what their interoception is like. And for some people, it can take a long time to start really tuning inwardly and noticing how we're feeling, because then we learn to respond rather than react immediately. We can just pause, breathe, feel, and then when we reassure, it's about reassuring our inner child, even just think we're safe. So our primal brain goes, it's okay, we're safe. And often I will put my hand on my heart and just go, it's all right. Or even stroking our arms, because that's soothing as well. And it's a way of self-soothing. I think self-soothing and this interoception is a biggie.
That was all just pure gold. I love it. Pause, breathe, feel, and reassure. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes people forget the reassure. And then what they do is they pause and they breathe and they think that, okay, right, sorted, up we go. But they don't give themselves time. And that's like doing a positive spin on it, or just saying, no, everything's okay, we're fine. And they might miss the feel, actually acknowledging and expressing the emotion before they reassure themselves and say, but it's okay, we're safe.
Yeah. Yeah. That feel piece. So many of us just learned that that's the part we repress. It's okay to reassure, but let's move past the distressing emotion. And then we've got toxic positivity that's just in the body.
And let's just keep busy out there, rather than really starting to address what's going on inside.
Yeah, so good. Okay, in closing, I want to hear about SIRPA and your book, Chronic Pain, Your Key to Recovery. and tell me about like just how that came about, SIRPA, and anything, and I'll make sure and put all these in the show notes, but yeah.
Well, SIRPA came about because I had been over to the States 3 times, where some of us, like Dr. David Clark, Dr. Howard Jubener, we're all getting together for conferences and started to talk about how can we get this out there globally. But all my peer support was in the States, and there was nobody over here in the UK. And also, it's quite costly and to be flying over to the States and back all the time. And I just thought, if there's no training, there was no training at all at the time. And I just felt my learning came from books and from learning from the others and going to the conferences. So setting up SIRPA in 2010 was about starting to train other health professionals and coaches. 1, for peer support for me and for all of them. 2, to be able to refer people onto. So, for example, a psychotherapist who understands this work, great, we can refer on. To spread the word more quickly than just me with clients. If I'm training practitioners, they will then work with all their clients as well. And to make it easier for the practitioners, for health professionals to start doing this work than it was for me. So that's why I set it up. And initially I used to go around the UK training, did one in Spain, and then for various reasons moved the training online. A lot of people from further afield were asking me if they could access it or if we could do it. And in the end, that was the best thing for us to do. So we moved the training online in, I don't know, 2017, I think, 2018. And literally this year, I'm upgrading it all. So that's being updated. So that is available for anybody. But the other thing that we have is, as well as the training, which is a level 1 information and introduction to all this work and the concept and studies and things. The level 2 is actually the practitioner training. So helping people understand how do they determine whether somebody's got mind body, making sure if they are not a doctor, for example, that somebody needs to see a doctor to rule things out, and teaching them how to assess patients. And then we also have the membership. So our membership is the ongoing throughout the practitioner training and ongoing, which means that we have a really wonderful, like our SIRPA family now of health professionals and coaches who are doing this work and who are so supportive of each other. And so we have lots of things that we do within the membership as well, and including monthly webinars with people in our field, outside our field, anything that would help practitioners in this work. So so that's been going on quite a while now, 12 years.
Years. Can you repeat what was level 1?
Level 1's the introduction. So there's a lot of the pain science in there, the understanding about stress and pain, and some basic strategies, and beginning to help people understand more about this work. The rest of it, level 2, is more about what do we do with clients? How do we assess them? How do we support them? And then and there are assignments within that as well.
Okay. Okay. So that's for practitioners, which is amazing, and we need that. What do you suggest for somebody who's in chronic pain? What do you have for them?
Well, we have our SIRPA Online Recovery Programme that was developed before the training, and that was redeveloped. It was completely revamped last year, and we have so many practitioners now who are specialists in their own field, and so we thought we'll make use of these people as well, so that we have somebody who's a breathwork specialist who's done the lesson on breathwork. We have a meditation teacher who's done the section on meditation. So it brings in the family of SIRPA practitioners, but it's all aimed at people in pain or with other mind-body conditions, whatever they happen to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And then you wrote a book. When did you write the book?
I wrote the book in 2014, and it desperately needs updating. And I keep saying we're going to do it, but this year it's the training, and I'm hoping next year will be the book, and then I will write this. So, I mean, there is a second version which we're on at the moment, but it was just minor changes. Whereas this one, I need to revamp it completely. So much evolves all the time. It's about keeping up with everything.
Yes, I'm sure that adds a pressure, doesn't it?
And it adds more to help people. That's the nice thing about it. There's so many things I want to put in that book, but I have to focus on one thing at a time. Can't do that as well. I've been trying to, but I've given up and thought, no, that'll be after the training. But yeah, it's I want to share. I want to get this work out there, and I know that I'd like to put more in a book. There's enough, but there's more information I'd like to.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you and all the gold nuggets in here, neuroscience to application to all of it. So thank you from me and also from the watchers who will definitely benefit from it. So yeah.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Jen.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, everybody. That's it for today. And I will see you again next Saturday. Bye. You don't go anywhere yet.